Hey folks, I'm out here in the desert today. Came out to do a little shooting, talk about a few things. Um, and one of the things that I really want to talk about is, and it's something that I don't talk about a whole lot necessarily on this channel or anything like that, and that's just straight up politics. And what I want to talk about is something that's been asked of me lately, particularly by a lot of folks who are not shooters, who are not gun owners, gun enthusiasts, anything like that. And some of the things that they've asked me are about things like potential changes to firearms laws, changes coming in with the new administration, the new president coming in, and what I think about potential for civil unrest, for the boogaloo, which I hate saying, and hopefully YouTube doesn't ban my video just for saying that. But people ask me, and I like to think that people ask me, particularly, like I said, friends, acquaintances who are not necessarily gun people, who are not in, who don't know a whole lot about what some of these changes might be, or what some of these things might mean to those of us who are enthusiasts and shooters and gun owners. And so the first thing I want to talk about is some proposed laws, some proposed changes to existing laws, some proposed things that are kind of coming down the pipe that have been talked about. First of all, there's some proposed changes to the ATF, including hiring up to 200 more agents to enforce existing firearms laws nationwide. While I will say that I like the idea of more jobs being created, 200 ATF agents is just a waste of money. The enforcement that they're doing with respect to a lot of these firearms laws is not just not effective, in my opinion. And I should have said this right from the start. All of this is just going to be my opinion, my thoughts on things. Don't take any of this as legal advice. Don't take any of this as Barry telling you what you should do or what you shouldn't do. So again, for the most part, additional ATF agents to enforce existing laws is, I think, pointless. The majority of gun laws that are being violated these days are state and municipal level. So these are city laws, these are state laws that are being broken. ATF is around to work on regulation enforcement of the NFA, the National Firearms Act, restrictions. So things like machine guns and grenades and things like that. And the history and statistics tell us that those things just aren't used in a lot of crimes. Yes, they do show up at crime scenes. Yes, they do show up in somebody's home when they get raided by ATF or whatever. Yes, that happens. But in the full picture of what's happening with gun laws and violations of those laws, they are not typically going to be a lot of these federal laws. Now, some of those federal laws get added as, kind of a bonus. So if you get arrested for having an illegal rifle in your state, the ATF may come along and say, yeah, oh, by the way, that fits a particular guideline that we have, and so we're going to add on this federal charge to it. Whatever. I think if the ATF wants to spend money, and they're a government agency, of course they want to spend money. It's what they do. What they should be doing is hiring more people to clear background checks for things like short-barreled rifles, silencers, short-barreled shotguns, that kind of thing. At the moment, an application, a Form 4 application to transfer one of those guns, so to transfer a short-barreled rifle, if I want to go into a store and buy a registered short-barreled rifle, the wait on that is anywhere from 3 months to 18 months. And that's ridiculous. There's no reason why any of that should be taking so long. The people who are applying for these transfers, who are buying these things through these legal channels, are going to pass background checks. The failure rate on those background checks is pretty small, and that's because the people who bother to go through this know that they are not violators of the law. They know that they don't have things in their background that are going to preclude them from being able to buy these things. And so if I go in and I want to buy a silencer, I should not have to wait a year to get it just because ATF doesn't have the manpower to sit and look through my application, to look up go to my state and see that, yeah, he's got a valid license to carry, which means he's passed a bunch of background checks already. I should be able to get that much, much quicker. Now, ideally, the Hearing Protection Act, which has been proposed in the Congress again, it gets proposed pretty much every year now. The Hearing Protection Act would pass. It won't. I don't think it really has any realistic chance of passing. But what the Hearing Protection Act would do is really just make it possible to buy things like silencers essentially over the counter. So I would go in, fill out a background check right there. They would run it. If it's something like buying a 4473 handgun or rifle in the store, for me, I would get to bypass that because the state already has my background check for my concealed carry license, and I'd be able to walk out of the store right then with the silencer. A silencer is not a weapon. It's not a gun. It doesn't make guns super duper quiet so you can sneak around like assassins in the movie. It just doesn't work that way. Anybody who shot one can tell you that. Anybody local to me, anytime you want to, let me know. I'll take you out. You can see the difference between a unsuppressed and suppressed AR. Okay, you will see that it's not a huge difference. It's not meant to make you super duper ninja quiet. It's just to save your ears. That's it. A second proposal that's come up, and I think the one that a lot of folks I know, particularly gun folks I know who are concerned about, is the expansion of requirements for registering items through the NFA. So the National Firearms Act requires registration of, again, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, things like that, silencers. For the most part, those registrations carry a $200 fee. There are some slightly different fees. Short-barreled shotguns, I think, are less than that. An AOW and any other weapon is like $5. But again, they take forever. So one of the proposals would be to require every assault weapon, like this AR here, to be registered and to pay that fee. Now, they haven't released specifics of that, but I think that it's safe to assume that registration of something like this would carry that $200 fee because it is a gun. And registration of a regular short-barreled rifle. So if I took this and put a 12-inch rifle, 12-inch barrel on it, I would have to register that and pay $200, and it would be fine. So I think it's safe to assume that the registration for each of these rifles would then turn into $200, which is just taxation. It's just a tax from the ATF, which is not a taxing authority, but that's something totally different. But in addition to that, the proposal also included requirement for registration of high-capacity magazines. Now, a high-capacity magazine, I don't know what you might consider that. For the most part, folks who do spend time around this stuff, who do shoot, know that an AR like this comes with a standard. This is standard 30-round magazine. Okay, that's 30 rounds right there in a magazine. And the proposal that they've decided to go with is to regulate any magazine that holds over 10 rounds. So there are already states that have this requirement or that have bans on magazines that hold over 10 rounds. So something like this would be illegal there. unless you get what's called a limiter, which is just a big plastic thing that goes in here and prevents you from being able to load more than 10 rounds. So for the most part, that comes into play with pistol magazines, and so they're going to be what they call California compliant or Massachusetts compliant magazines, which look just like any regular magazine, but they'll have, the limiters built in, so you can't remove it. You can't easily modify it to carry more than 10 rounds. But it looks just like any other magazine. And again, there is not a specific definition of what the registration fee would be for those high capacity magazines, but with knowledge of how these agencies work and how revenue is revenue, and any income that they can get is going to be a positive. I think that it's also fair to assume that each of these magazines would require $200 registration. Now, what that means beyond that, would you have to engrave all of your magazines, put your name on all of them? I don't know. But the biggest problem with that is the fact that somebody, the average shooter may own one AR, let's say, that they bought because they wanted sort of a do-all gun, something that they can hunt with, something that they can defend the home with, whatever. And so they've got an AR. But the problem is, an AR is no good if you don't have magazines. And realistically, you can't have just one magazine. There might be something wrong with it. You might get a malfunction with it. You might break it. They break. They're made of plastic, okay? This is space age, high-tech plastic, but they break. Things happen. You might break the feed lips, which is, just this little piece on the top here. If you drop this just right, that might crack. Your magazine's not going to hold ammo in it. It's not going to be any good. So when that happens, your $200 registered magazine becomes garbage. And what do you do with it? Can you replace it? Can you, mark this as destroyed? Because there's currently a process for deregistering NFA items. So if you have a short barrel rifle and you just want to turn it back into a regular rifle forever, you can do that. It's another form you fill out. I don't think you have to pay for it, but do you deregister this and then you have to register a new one and pay another $200? Or can you destroy this one, take the serial number that you've engraved off this one, put it on a new magazine and not have to pay again? I think that's unlikely. I think that every time you buy one, they're going to want you to register it. And so that is where the cost starts to add up. And, if you're going to talk about saying, we're not going to raise taxes on everybody, we're not, taxes are going to stay the same. We know that people don't have money for new taxes. Well, guess what? That's a new tax. And between AR magazines, pistol magazines, shotgun tube magazines, 22s, I've got magazines for my 22s that hold more than 10 rounds. Every single one of those is going to cost me and cost law-abiding gun owners $200 to register. And who knows what'll happen if we have to replace them. I typically will buy 10 or 20 of these PMags every year, just because, like I said, they're expendable. You use them. If something happens to them, if they start feeding wrong, if something is wrong with the springs or whatever, you damage the follower, you throw it out. You don't bother saving these forever because they're typically not worth it. In the store retail on this right now, $12, $13, depending on the exact model that you get. You can get other magazines cheaper than that. You can get other magazines more expensive than that. But when you start adding in $200 times, like I said, if I buy 10 magazines a year across ARs, pistols, whatever, this turns into thousands and thousands of dollars every year that I'm going to have to pay. And that's definitely a valid concern, I think, that a lot of people have, because it's just money straight out of our pockets for something that, today, January 18th, 2021, this requires no registration. I might have to come back to this video a year from now and see what's happened. So those are sort of the two big ones. There have been some kind of musings about other I think positive proposals, things like nationwide concealed carry, that was or became kind of a big issue 4 years ago when Donald Trump was elected. He came in saying, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's do that." Well, he didn't. He didn't do much for gun rights at all, quite frankly. Um, he got bump stocks banned. That kind of stuff. Whatever. He's not our president anymore, and so we have to plan for the future. We have to plan and be ready for what's going to come, what might happen, what might not. Um, we have to start having really long conversations about not just how something like a magazine ban or registration affects me as a serious shooter enthusiast who comes out here and shoots 1,000 rounds a month, and shoots, has tons of magazines, carries a gun every day. But think about folks who have one gun at home because they live in a bad neighborhood and they want to have some protection for their home. They've got family members that they want to take care of. They've got a home business. A lot of people are working at home right now. That means there's home businesses doing work at home. Maybe you run your business at home and you keep a lot of cash there. I don't know. A gun is something that a lot of people will want to have to protect them. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to come into all these people and you're going to say, "Hey, by the way, you're not allowed to have that anymore unless you pay this huge fee that we know you can't afford anyway because your business is bad because of COVID or whatever. And so your choices are to register it with money we know you don't have, or to get rid of it and leave yourself defenseless." And I think that that's very antithetical to not just the Second Amendment, of course, but also just to human rights. You're telling these people that they're not allowed to defend themselves, their homes, their businesses, their families, whatever, unless they pay for it. And that's just that goes counter to pretty much everything that I believe. And so while I understand that the Democratic Party, and I'm not going to get into party issues here because I don't think any of the parties are really on the side of gun owners in particular. The Democratic Party now has a 51 seat majority in the Senate, that being 50-50 plus the vice president, who could be the tiebreaker. So if 50 Democratic senators vote for something and there's a tie, we're going to assume that the Democratic vice president will vote in favor of breaking that tie. So what I would ask is, if you are in a state that has Democratic senators and Republican senators, okay, don't think that just because you have a Republican senator that you're safe. Don't assume that your Republican senator is doing everything they can to protect your rights, protect your gun rights, because chances are pretty good that they're not. Write letters to your senators, let them know, send emails, show up, have meetings with them, show up at their rallies, let them know that you oppose this stuff. Because if it only takes one senator to keep that from being a tie, then that's what we need. And there are Democratic senators in states that we think of as being very gun friendly. So if you are in a Wild West state that has a Democratic senator and you want to convince them that, hey, we can't ban these because the local Boy Scout troop uses them for hunting, or the 4-H club needs them, and we don't. It's too much to ask for them, these non-profit groups to go and spend money on that kind of thing. So do that. Be vocal. Be heard. Join groups like Firearms Policy Coalition. They're doing great things. They're filing tons of lawsuits to protect our rights all the time. I'm a supporter. I'm donating to them every year, every chance that I get. Yes, the NRA declared bankruptcy. That doesn't mean the NRA is going away. Talk all you want about how bad the NRA is and how bad Wayne LaPierre is, because he's awful. He really is, and he's got to go. But the bottom line is the NRA and the IRL are working in a lot of cases to protect your rights. I am not going to tell you to give your money to the NRA because I absolutely understand why you wouldn't want to. But you need to understand that there are a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of really good work. And so I encourage you to go out and find those. If you are in a state that has a state rifle association, Texas has the Texas Rifle Association, something like Virginia Citizens Defense League. Go look those up. Find those. Find out what they're doing. Find out how you can help them. How you can, if it's just to give them your money, give them your money. If they need help writing letters, if they need help, going out to events and being seen and talking to people, go out and do that, because none of this stuff is going to be protected if we don't do it. It's up to us. It's on us to protect these rights. And so all I can do is just encourage you, ask you, beg you, plead with you to go out and do that stuff. Again, anybody who's local to me, West Texas, Southern New Mexico, or even, fairly nearby, if you're in Arizona and you want to talk, we can get together. I'll make the drive. I don't care. I'm dedicated to getting the word out, to helping people out whenever they need it, wherever they need it, as much as I possibly can. So by all means, reach out. If you are not engaged online, you can find a lot of groups that have that are dedicated to spreading the word about this kind of stuff also. So go out there, find those resources, and do your part, really, because it doesn't take long for a lot of this stuff to change very drastically against us. So I know this was a pretty long video. I do want to thank you for tuning in and for sitting through it. Again, make some calls, get on the internet, find out what you can do, and I'm here with you.